writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
Hello and welcome to Right Pack Radio. This is a special episode paneled only by women, and hosting this panel is me, Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance and urban fantasy under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and with me today is...
My name is Jennifer Solzer. I am a children's book author and illustrator, and I've written children's books. I'm working on many children's books, and I'm proud to say that I had some content requested this week, so I have another partial out, and I'm super ecstatic about it.
Yay!
And I'm Melanie Kulani. I write sci-fi, fantasy, and nonfiction.
And you had something published in a journal, right?
Well, it hasn't been formally accepted yet, and that's even if it is, it's a scientific journal where I'm one of like 6 authors.
That still counts, man.
We totally count.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're for getting published.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our topic today, because we are a panel peopled by women, is about pet peeves. Pet peeves specifically about the portrayal of women in fiction. So, women are people. I think that's the ground rule for this conversation. Women are people, and because women are people, we expect a certain amount of writing believability when we read and see women in fiction, in TV, and films. Mm-hmm. And before this recording began, we were talking about a few things we did not like seeing because they were not believable women.
Yes.
Would either of you like to start? We were on Star Trek.
Star Trek?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were talking... Specifically, we were considering the fact that there were no gentlemen present at our panel today. Mm-hmm. So we thought this would be a good time to just air grievances. No one would feel like they were being unincluded in the conversation since it's 3 ladies and we're gonna gripe. Or
compelled to defend the males in whatever we're watching. Because it's not their fault.
True, but for Star Trek, let me just say Gene Roddenberry did want an equal number of male and female crew, and the studio wouldn't let him.
And that is a pet peeve of mine, too.
Yes, It's always the token female. There's a trope to start with. It's the token female. I brought up a couple things, just the general purpose of women in things. We'll talk speculative, we'll talk specifically Star Trek for 1 second. In Star Trek TNG... in the first season, there are 3 principal female characters. Dr. Crusher, Counselor Troy, and Tasha Yar. And by the end of the 7th season, 2 of those characters are in romantic subplots and 1 has died. So what are women for?
Romance or death.
Romance or to further the plots of their male characters via death.
Yes.
In Tasha's case, her actress wanted off so that she could go pursue film instead of television. So she had a reason to die, but she died.
But
she died to further tell Data's story.
I think that is an important thing to point out, though. Her actress wanted to leave, so they killed her character. But why did they kill her character in the story? To further a male character's plot and story arc.
I forget who it was. It probably wasn't the actress. I don't remember. But somebody wanted to die, instead of having the character die in a really heroic, life-saving way, wanted basically one of the main characters to die like a red shirt.
Yeah.
And she died a red shirt death.
Yes, Tasha Yar got bitch slapped to death by a tar monster.
Yes.
A character that was on the show that long got a red shirt death, really?
Yes, and they did it on purpose because they just, this was their opportunity.
Yeah.
I forget whose idea it was and who wanted to do it that way, but that was a conscious choice. Now, she did get the same actors. She had a secondary life because involving alternate universes and time travel.
Her actress appeared a couple times. She appeared as an alien once, I believe, as well. I think she was a Romulan. But the point is the character is dead.
The character appeared as her own daughter that was half Romulan.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah.
The point was women in fiction.
And romance subplots, can we get into
subplots. Yes.
Well, starting from the very first episode, I mean the pilot of TNG, Riker and Counselor Troy.
Yes.
that? All right.
And Lou Oksana, her mother, shows up every now and then to badger her for why she isn't married yet. Which is a character trope. You know, it's a character trait that is in her that was established from the beginning, but all of the male characters on the show don't have mothers showing up telling them they need to get married. They also aren't all in romantic relationships or in ongoing romantic subplots like the women are.
Oh my goodness. Can we talk about police procedural shows, though?
Go ahead, talk about police procedural shows.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I love buddy cop shows. I love police procedurals. I love characters who interact in quirky ways, like Odd Couple, buddy cop things. So I love Castle. I like what I've seen of Bones. I love The Mentalist. However, I've seen through season 3 of The Mentalist, so it should be noted that they might have changed this later. In The Mentalist, there is an almost even number of men and women on the police team of 4. They are, a woman is the head of the team, and then Van Pelt is the newbie. Van Pelt is very cute. She's very cute. And one of the members of the team immediately has this huge crush on her. It ends up being reciprocated, but they break up because they cannot be coworkers and dating on the same team. All right, that's fine. Every character ever after, this happens 3 times with Van Pelt, she starts dating someone else. The other dudes on the team, we barely hear about their relationships. We hear about one of their dating relationships because she's assaulted and he goes bats. Like, he goes bats and kills everything. Well, not kills everything, but the point is he would have. He would have if he were not a police officer in some form. Another guy, the one who was in love, his failing relationships happen every so often to prove to Van Pelt that he has moved on. Van Pelt dates, in order, a man who wants to kill Patrick Jane, the mentalist in question on the team. So she is used to get close to Jane, and he clearly cares nothing about her when he is Jane in his gun sights. Mm-hmm. The second man she dates, I don't remember what his thing was. It was something bad. Something bad. The third she dates is working for Red John, the serial killer they have been trying to find for 3 seasons.
So she has terrible taste in men.
Not just that. When he dies in her arms, because, he doesn't try to save her, and so Rigby, the character that likes her, wants to warn her about this guy, but he can't really do that. So when the guy finally dies in her arms, he reaches up for her, and you're like, oh, he actually did care about her. And he pulls off the necklace that he gave her that was his mother's, and then he dies. You're telling me an FBI agent has that bad of taste in people?
It's so coincidental that she always dates plot points.
All of her boyfriends are plot points.
Now,
like, really? You couldn't... She is a great character. Like,
do another one. Okay, Sherlock.
Mm-hmm.
Romance in Sherlock is complicated because Sherlock's a psychopath. But
he's a high-functioning sociopath.
Do your research. That was a quote.
That was a quote.
Okay, but point is, there is a female... The thing is, in Sherlock, at least in the British version, the 2 main characters are male. Actually, pretty much all the main characters are male, except for the
woman
housekeeper.
And Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah, Mrs. Hudson. There was that person that had a crush on Sherlock.
Who is a joke.
Yes.
She is used as comedic... She is used for comedy because she has a crush on this person.
Was her name Molly?
It's been too long ago.
Sounds like it.
Point is,
She was cute.
Watson's wife, girlfriend and wife, whatever, is like, okay, here's someone else that has a type that isn't all that healthy. Watson.
Oh.
He keeps being used.
Well, not exactly. Actually, people actually care about him, and they kill for him, but he marries a contract killer.
Why would you tell me that? I did not know that
You're
yet.
spoiler alerting this.
Sorry.
I was going to talk about Irene Adler. How Irene in the books, the Sherlock books, is always referred to as the woman, that she embodies the whole of the female gender to Sherlock. In the shows, they tend to spin her more in a romantic way, which I think is unfair, because it's more interesting to analyze Sherlock's character. I mean, she's still being used as a prop to Sherlock, but Sherlock's the main character, and everyone in the book would be a prop to him, because we have to figure him out. He's hard to understand. So, seeing the way he perceives women in the character of Irene is interesting, but in modern retellings, she's always told as a love interest, which is, I think that's almost unfair to her. She's not the strongest female character anyway, and then you trope her by making her a girlfriend when she didn't really need Sherlock.
Well, and then Sherlock was engaged briefly, and that she was completely a trope.
Well, Irene Adler, I think it's important to note, appears, I believe, in one Sherlock story.
Yeah.
And her portrayal as the woman that Sherlock sees as marriage, whatever, the one that got away for him, is not accurate to the books.
No.
It's not. And that's a fan thing that has become part of the Sherlock culture, but it's not accurate.
Well,
and it's
she's
unfair.
literally the one that got away, but he had no intention of marrying her.
No, he likes her because she outsmarted him, and that never happens.
Yes.
That was it. Like, he likes Moriarty for the same reason. Are y'all gonna make this a gay romance for them? Like, I don't see that
No,
happening.
see, the gay romance, I'm afraid, is Sherlock and Watson.
The fandom will go where it goes. The point that we're driving at through this entire sort of conversation is that women, more often than not, are the ones that get the romance plot. There are so many men on cast, and having a man be the one, who has a romance plot is rarer than women just by ratio. If there's a woman on cast, more than likely she's going to have a romance plot. It's probably, and I'm not talking about an episodic thing where there's one episode where she has a boyfriend. That's different. I'm talking about her main plot is an ongoing romantic subplot that goes throughout the show or the book or the series or whatever.
Case in point, Castle, Bones.
Yes.
Okay, to be fair, Castle, at least in later seasons, was all about the two of them, so they're the two main characters. That's like, it's almost like X-Files, Mulder and Scully,
I think that was a definite will they, won't they kind of thing, and that's part of the subplot that drives the series. But it's because it's a man and a woman leading. If it were a man and a man, that will they, won't they question would never be there. If it were a woman and a woman, like Rizzoli and Isles, I don't hear that's the question that's asked every time. I think romance is often used to prop up weak characterization and define the female character. And people aren't defined strictly by romance, and men seem to be given that that benefit of the doubt. Like, do they have a character outside of the romance plot? Yes. Women, not as often.
I hate to bring up Babylon 5.
All right.
No, you don't.
Because Kathleen is still early in Babylon 5. So
No
we're going to
spoilers.
have an understanding that we're starting from the beginning of season 2.
Okay.
Beginning of season 2, nothing past that. So we haven't met any Rangers, we haven't met anybody like that yet. We also don't know the culmination of Ivanova's character arc in any way. I wanted to compare and contrast Ivanova and Delenn in their two stories.
Okay.
Ivanova is a female character that I think is done very well. I like her a lot. She has a strong personality. She has a lot of plot going on, first related specifically to her, how she relates to telepaths, considering her past, how she relates to other aliens, how she relates to authority, and how she's growing in her position on the station. Delenn has a whole lot of plot, which we also can't talk about because Kathleen hasn't seen past the beginning of season 2.
Thank you
But
for
to
being
be
nice.
very
General?
broad, yes. She has a lot of plot that involves the past and the war between her race and the humans. But her primary plot is a romance plot. The one that's in front of the camera most of the time is this romance plot.
In later seasons.
No. Not going there.
No, I know we're not going there, but the point is, I don't think that was so true in the later seasons.
In the early seasons, from what I have observed, she was going to have a romance plot with Sinclair, and then Sinclair left, and she's immediately started a romance plot with Sheridan.
Yes.
We're still like 4 episodes into the season, and that is already very clear. It was abundantly clear in the first season, too.
Yeah, the first time they crossed paths, they both went like bug eyes at each other. Because we needed them to fall in love right away because she lost that last season's worth of romance development that was going to take it nice and slow with Sinclair.
Yep. And she's the only female ambassador that we really see, too.
And she's always bugged me a little bit for that reason. She's like the lady we have, and then she also is the one in the romance plot.
But have you noticed also that her character in Babylon 5 changes from the alien species that she is to a hybrid of alien and human.
So that she can have a romance plot.
Yep, with the human male.
Yes.
And women changing drastically for men is another pet peeve.
That's a good transition. We should go into that.
Okay.
What are some more examples of things that we've seen about women making a dramatic change? I'm going to offer one. The Little Mermaid.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Give up your voice to get a man. Grow legs. Lose your voice. Get man.
Whose story was The Little Mermaid again?
Hans Christian Andersen.
No, in the Disney movie. Who was that really about? Who had the character arc?
Oh, that's Lindsay, nostalgia chick topic. She brought up the point in one of her reviews, the nostalgia chick, you can find her at shayapocalypse.com, that the story is actually about King Triton. It's King Triton's story. He's the only one who makes any dramatic change in the course of the Disney movie.
Okay.
Because he's the one who starts off with the idea that all the land dwellers are evil. And then he faces conflict when he butts heads with his daughter, loses his daughter, gives up everything to get his daughter back, and ends up letting his daughter go, realizing that the people on land aren't as evil as he thought they were.
I do want to point out one good thing about Little Mermaid, which I loved as a kid, and my sister can sing all the songs and hates me for that. Ursula. I believe she was originally going to be Triton's sister, which is why they're the only 2 people with magic.
She is his sister in expanded universe things. It's never stated outright in the movie, but I, as a child, read some of the Disney licensed books in which she was made his sister again.
So her character, she's like I hesitate to use the word strong because it's vague, but she is a formidable opponent in that film.
Ursula is a fantastic villain and a fantastic female character. I might also note that she was based on a drag queen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is awesome. I never knew that.
Divine, yes.
Really? That makes so much sense. Oh my gosh, that just made my day.
Yeah, okay. So, Little Mermaid, the story of Ariel is she wants a man. She makes a lot of sacrifices to get her man. She ends up being saved by her man and marries him.
You were going to bring up the Hans Christian Andersen,
Yeah, in the
right?
Hans Christian Andersen version, she makes a whole lot of sacrifices, and then in the end, when he doesn't love her, she, instead of killing him and taking back her life, she becomes sea foam.
Yep.
And then the moralistic ending is she gets to be transformed into an angel. So by not killing him, she gets a soul and can go to heaven eventually.
Oh,
eventually,
nice.
Because her penance for, all her choices, apparently, isn't it like whenever a child cries, she has 1,000 years added to her sentence, and whenever something happens else, she gets one removed?
It's been too long since I've read the Hans Christian Andersen story, but I do remember originally, mermaids are soulless creatures that live for 300 years, and then they die, and then they're no more. And she didn't just want the man, she wanted the immortal soul.
Okay.
She wanted the immortal soul. She wanted to get into heaven.
I didn't remember that part. I just remembered how unfair it seemed to me at the end that, she was never going to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, in the Hans Christian Andersen version, her path to salvation is marriage.
Oh. Well, actually, we can.
Oh, no, that's
we want to
true.
take that apart a little bit.
We should.
She tried to get married in order to be saved.
Yep.
But in the end, she didn't need him. She got saved anyway through personal, moral choices and sacrifice.
Yes.
So really, that the Hans Christian Andersen version is a very strong female character that involved a romance plot that wasn't necessarily a tropey romance plot.
She's a self-saving damsel, self-rescuing damsel.
I want to read that story.
Yes.
I can read that story. It's the Hans Christian Andersen version of Little Mermaid.
I never read it that way, but I haven't read the Hans Christian Andersen version since I was like 12, or maybe a little bit later, but still.
I like this.
Yeah.
Reforming my childhood better, stronger, faster, etc.
Rewrite a modern retelling of Little Mermaid that's closer to the original.
I wonder if that would be too heady for children, which is why we went with the talking fish version.
See, I think people underestimate children.
Yes.
I don't think it is. I think adults might think it is.
I agree with that very much. Kids are smarter than we think they are.
Now, I have noticed that with modern Disney tales and modern cartoons, the girl is less likely to get married at the end.
Can we
Nowadays?
talk about that? I think it's amazing. I'm so happy by this trend. There, in Brave, it's not about a romance relationship. It is actively about a mother and a daughter's relationship. And what was the other one? There was another one that was similar to that. Oh, Frozen. In Frozen, true love does not save the day in the way that it always does with true love's kiss between a man and a woman who have just met.
Yeah.
In Frozen, spoiler alert, the true love that saves the day is a love between two sisters. And in Maleficent, the one with Angelina Jolie, the true love's kiss that saves the day is a kiss from a mother to her daughter. Like, and an adopted daughter, too. Like, so much joy, so many... Oh, my goodness. I'm really excited by these things. I think it's really good that the people making movies for children are starting to show that there are other kinds of love that are just as important, if not more so, than romance love, you know?
Yeah, not to take this into a personal direction, but being a single, nearly 30-year-old, I grew up through my 20s thinking that I was missing out on the best part of my life because I did not have a man. And that was a construct placed in me by the media that I grew up with. You know, I knew my mother was married. I knew all of my family members were married in their 20s. I knew that everyone on TV got married at 18. And I was not married, so therefore I must be doing it wrong. And if there's one thing you shouldn't rush into out of desperation, it's probably a marriage. So I'm gonna just throw that personal hat in the ring and say that as a female character in this modern society, the female characters in the media I was watching have in that way negatively affected my perception of my own life.
I think that is that's something that there have been studies about with diversity in all sorts of different areas in the media that we watch. It is damaging to children and clearly to adults when you see only people that are not like you in the media you watch, the media you read, and it makes us tell ourselves stories that basically exclude us from being able to live happy and full lives. If you also look at the representation of, for example, Black people on TV shows, a study was done showing preschool-age kids a bunch of TV shows and then asking them what they thought they could be when they grew up. And all the white male kids thought they could be anything, you know, and to a lesser extent the white female kids. But the kids who were Black, the kids who were Hispanic were like, I could be a janitor, or I could be, you know, the token characters. I could be the bad guy. Because these were the characters they were seeing themselves portrayed as on TV. So one of the reasons I thought it was good to have this pet peeves conversation is because these are the characters that are like us, that we are seeing portrayed in our media. And if they're not portrayed as people, fully fleshed out, well-rounded people with all sorts of different personality types and body types and subplot and plot types, then we are not, all sorts of different roles, then we are not seeing a good representation of ourselves, and we have very few things to identify with.
And we have more to overcome when facing our own lives as opposed to someone who has seen that possibility laid out before them more evidently.
Exactly. There's a definite psychological impact for having female characters portrayed in such limited roles.
Yep. There's this is very obvious in romances, but It's true of other types of things too, but there is the relationships that are portrayed and even idealized. I mean, a lot of people reading romances, especially the older people and adults, or, teenagers and adults, they know that not all life is like this, but they get modeled what romance is supposed to be like. And a lot of the romances portrayed aren't healthy relationships.
That is true.
And it would be okay if they weren't healthy relationships, if there were healthy models too.
Yeah.
Like, properly dealing with conflict, perhaps, that type of thing.
Yes, and not thinking that jealousy is cute.
Yeah.
When your man is fiercely jealous of you and gets into fights over you, that's
stalking?
Stalking is like that's not a healthy thing, and that person is probably going to be dangerous to you at some point in the future when this courting aspect is over, and that's not something is usually. How often is a man punching another man over you considered a swoon moment in a modern romance written by men or women?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I hate that song Jealous by Joe Jonas. I think it's Joe Jonas. Because basically the song is him saying, you're awesome and I see other people looking at you and I'm really fiercely jealous and it's my right to be hellish when I'm jealous.
Also, that rhyme is atrocious.
But I'm like, wow, there are so many songs on the radio that show that portray that kind of thing is okay, that people are singing. And do you realize you're singing about personality traits that are common in stalkers and abusive boyfriends and husbands? There are all sorts of early warning signs for that kind of relationship, and that kind of jealousy is one of them. Isolates you from your friends and family, is jealous of the attention other people show you, and tries to isolate you from other men, not just other women, that sort of thing. And those are bad. Those are warning signs telling you to get the hell out. Why are you singing this pop song that's glorifying this kind of relationship?
Or they're kind of stuck in the teenage romance where, again, they break up. But in case it's not showing good conflict resolution, and
it's showing a teenage average high hormonal
reactionary
romance, but not showing by contrast the adult partnership romance that would then lead to a marriage that you want to stay in.
Yeah.
If you've listened to other episodes of this series, you will know that we harp on Twilight a lot. One of the main reasons I harp on Twilight to the extent that I do is because it's about an abusive relationship. And it's being touted as this great romance, and everybody loves this story. Everybody loves this series of books about a girl who is willingly engaging herself in a romance that would be dangerous in real life and is dangerous in the books, and it's called romance and it's abuse. 50 Shades of Grey is the exact same thing. If you ask anyone in the BDSM community, they will tell you that's abusive. That is not how things like that work. That is not how it works. Is get out of that situation too.
Well, the Twilight series is also a good place to find some of our classic female trope characters.
Yes.
We have Bella, who is the blank slate, pants, Lego brick, nothing character, who is our drone protagonist that we get to ride around. She might be a lady, but strong she is not. Even though it's her voice that we're talking through, that we're reading, it is her voice that we're reading. She's not like other girls. She's clumsy and not exactly pretty, but then everyone gives her attention anyway. So one trope. We'll call her the blank slate trope, who has no personality and is flat as a pancake. There's the manic pixie dream girl trope, which would be Alice, who is a little airy and mysterious, and she comes in to talk about the future, and in other media, she's there to show the man the better life. This is the way to free-spirited living. You will finally live when you date me, because I have such a strange and magical way of thinking. So, Manic Pixie Dream Girl. The other two women that I can think of, there are more women in the books. There are quite a few female characters in the books, which is good. It's good that there's lots of female characters. The other two I was thinking would be the jealous older sister, who is probably the most well-rounded of all the characters, because she has she's still coming from a uniquely female perspective. She's upset that as a vampire she's never going to be able to have children. She's jealous of Bella because Bella is still human. She's in a romantic relationship with another vampire, but that romantic relationship isn't all that she is. She's also suffering from personal things. I think she's one of the strongest characters on cast. The other female trope is the caring mother character. Mm-hmm. Esme does very little other than be the caring mother character, be Carlisle's wife. She has stuff to her, but nothing significant enough for me to recall around this table right now. So those are the 4 kind of principal females that we get to hang out with in Twilight. And of those, only one of them I would be interested in reading a story about, and it's not Bella.
Well, Bella, like you said, pants, she's the pair of pants the reader puts on to experience this romance, as they call it.
Yeah.
Of course, there are slightly romance is through a whole lot of different female tropes. Romance is pretty much in all genres as far as I can tell, but there are other genres, for instance in sci-fi. Mm-hmm. It's not exclusively a female trait, but females are often the cabbage head. Yeah. They're the ones that don't know what's going on, so there's the excuse to explain it to them.
Mansplain it to them?
Mansplain it. By contrast, my sister and I just watched Super Troopers. First time I've ever seen Super Troopers. You will love Super Troopers, Kathleen.
I have seen it. It was funny.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it.
But it was a while ago.
But then you can support me on the statement that, by contrast, either it's the dumb blonde character who everyone is explaining everything to because why should the woman know? The only female character on cast of Super Troopers is the most capable one there, but gets put down by all the stupid men for comedy. And she also is in a romance plot. The only reason that she's included in the hero cast is because she is the quarry of one of the troopers on the highway patrol. She ends up being more important to the plot later, because the plot is about drug running, but as far as our hero cast is concerned, the only value she has to them for most of the movie is as a romance quarry.
You said something that made me think about a few trope subversions that have been amazing.
All right.
So, we are talking pet peeves, and the dumb blonde is a pet peeve.
Yes.
And the woman who always has to be explained, always needs to have things explained to her is another pet peeve. Because
and the glasses nerdy brunette.
Yep. Watch Scooby-Doo. You can name a bunch of tropes
Those
right there.
Those are all the tropes.
Uh-huh. But some things that have done very well at subverting those tropes, because they have become cultural expectations, are Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for one, and Agent Peggy Carter for another. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a blonde. She's a blonde cheerleader. She's a blonde cheerleader who doesn't like school so much. You would expect her to be an airhead, but she happens to be a vampire slayer. She's very smart, and she could kick the butt of anyone she comes across. Like, she fights demons and vampires and wins, and that's her daily life. And her cover at school is the blonde that we would all expect. But she is far more than that, and Joss Whedon lets her be far more than that. Mm-hmm. And it was a great way of subverting that trope. He said, I'm tired of seeing he said along these lines, I'm tired of seeing the blonde girl go into the alley and, never come out again. Get beat up, I wanted the blonde girl walking into the alley to be the one that comes out on top and can take anything that's in there.
That's not saying that Buffy is falling into this, but then we can take a moment to address the difference between a strong female character and a strong female character.
Yes. Please let's.
Before we go into that, this just was Joss Whedon did a black and white version he shot it in his house and backyard.
Much Ado About Nothing?
Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And in that one, he recast one of the characters that was originally male as a female.
Who?
It was one of the guards of the bad guy.
Oh.
And
Don John's guards?
Yeah, that he... Okay, in any case, they kept the dialogue exactly the same. The only possible changes is they, turned a few he's into she's, but everything else was the same. But boy, it made that character different. Plus, the staging during different things. For instance, John was actually having sex with that character at one point while they were saying those lines.
I still need to see that movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I liked it. Yeah. So strong versus strong.
Yeah.
being a strong female character does not necessarily mean you have to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer and know how to do 30 kinds of karate and win every fight.
Yeah.
Being physically strong is actually a kind of misconception when people try to write strong female characters. Now, I understand why the word strong means strong, but the way we're defining strong when we talk about a strong female character is a present and fully rounded female character, not just can lift a bus female character. There are a collection of strong female characters in Joss Whedon's Firefly. One of them is very physically strong and will kill you. Another one is very powerful and nimble and will also kill you. And one of them would not kill a fly if she had the opportunity, but they're all equally strong because they all have their own motivations and angles. And then there's Inara.
Is Inara the one that's kind of crazy?
She's the courtesan. River is the one that's a little off her rocker.
Yeah, she'll kill you.
Oh, right.
River is very interesting. I'm gonna get flack, but I think she's a little more proppish than other ones are, mostly because she doesn't have a personality so much as she has a collection of quirks that make her hard to understand.
I think...
I'm sure she was great fun to play, though.
She seems like she was a lot more fun when she hadn't had pieces of her brain removed. And I think, based on Serenity, the end of Serenity, she was kind of coming back into her own as a character. Because when we meet her, she's just come through all that trauma of, being experimented on. Spoiler for Firefly and Serenity, everyone. River was experimented on by the government when she was supposed to be at school. They lied about it. And I think also having to become accustomed to hearing and seeing other people's thoughts is highly disorienting. So for the first season, I think she is, kind of a series of quirks.
But she needs to be because they're building her into something bigger.
And if we had seen more of the show, I think she would have become a more fully realized
Yet another
character.
tragedy for a great thing killed too young.
Another thing, I've only seen the first few episodes. I think it's in the second season now. Orphan Black.
I hear good things.
Yeah, Orphan Black. Let's see. Can I give a spoiler away that's given away in the pilot?
No, you're allowed.
Go ahead. No,
Okay.
it's okay.
The pilot's okay. So, Orphan Black involves cloning. So, the actress that's the main character plays like 5 or 6 characters. So, she's playing 5 or 6 different people.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of work, too, because she's playing opposite herself. I can just imagine the award show. She's nominated for the same, same episode for the lead actress and supporting actress. But it's interesting because you get to explore this is a clone, and they've all had different lives, and now they're finding each other and facing this giant conspiracy, whatever. But, and I can't spoil too much of it because I haven't watched too much of it. But the different clones... Some of them actually might be somewhat tropey, but it's like, it's the same person, same actress, whatever, and she's differentiating all these characters.
I think it's pretty cool that when casts have as many women, if not more than men, because of the population breakdown we actually have in the world is 51% women, 49% men. But men tend to be all that we see. There's the token woman, because all population statistics aside, that's all we get.
Yep, token woman. Tired of token women. I had an idea. It's gone now. What were we talking about?
Oh, sorry.
Different type of female characters.
Different types of female characters. I was gonna just take a moment to address the term trope. And that we use trope in a negative way most of the time. But really what a trope is just a common trait.
Yeah.
It's a common recognizable trait. And any one of us sitting around this table, we all have certain tropes that we fall into if we were characters on a sitcom. But that's not all we are, and that's the difference. When you are just the trope character, when you're just the dumb blonde, when the character's just the dumb blonde, you're ignoring the rest of the human that would logically exist there and just stopping her at her trope. And that's when we're trying to subvert tropes by adding more to characters than just what the surface level is.
Yeah, I've been watching Doctor Who lately, and Doctor Who is male, And most of the companions, the people that travel around with him, not all, but most, are female. And they do that to, I think, balance out. And yes, some of them have romances, but maybe because they've heard people complaining. But not all the companions are in love with Doctor Who.
Yes. I think it's refreshing when we're hanging out with a companion that is interested in hanging out with him based on how much they like him as a person and not necessarily how much they want to date him.
Yeah. The fact that he's not human actually helps because some of the characters seem to be able to keep that in mind. Not all.
That's an important distinction. All right, Kathleen?
All right. Something you said just triggered my pitch black whatever number movie. My Riddick.
Oh, Riddick, yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh, gee, Riddick.
It should be stated, I love the Riddick Chronicles. Like, not the movie specifically by that name. I love Pitch Black and the series about that character.
I love Pitch Black solely. The rest of the Riddick story kind of hits me in the wrong place. I loved Pitch Black because it wasn't Riddick's story. It was a story about a bunch of losers who were getting eaten by monsters, and Riddick was too badass for this world.
Well, suffice it to say, in Riddick, the movie where Riddick again has to get off of a planet.
Yeah, this is the most recent one.
Yes, there is a lesbian character. Yay! Lesbian representation on TV. That's great. On film. That's great. That doesn't happen enough. The lesbian character is a badass, physically.
Strong female character.
Yes, she's that kind. I can't do that voice. But we learn that she is a lesbian when some jerk hits on her, and she's like, I don't like guys. Like, no, just you're barking up the wrong tree kind of thing. Then she takes a shower, and Riddick's hand sneaks in to steal her razor. Was that what it was?
I don't remember.
Basically,
I was too distracted by the fact that we were looking at her boobs, and I didn't know why.
She's the only one in the movie that takes a shower. She is also the only female character in the movie that's there for any length of time. Why is she the one in the shower? Because she's a woman.
That was my first... Kathleen and I saw this in the theater together. That was my first hint that perhaps this character wasn't someone I was going to end up liking and identifying with. She turned from being an interesting person I wanted to learn more about because she seemed to have more layers than most into... Oh, screen bait.
So she became the objectified woman in the shower, and then the jerk. Didn't he try to rape her?
Yeah.
He attacked her. He tried to assault her, and suddenly this woman who could take down bears with her bare hands. That was the impression you get. Could barely fight off this guy while she was naked. So she turned into a flailing damsel, and after that, she has sex with Riddick when Riddick lives. Riddick lives through his adventure, his peril, and so he gets to have sex with a lesbian woman who doesn't like men.
The scene specifically that I think of is when Riddick was in chains, and he was posturing at everybody who had him captured, and he looked at her and said, when I get free, I'm going balls deep into her. And she took it as a come-on instead of a horrifying verbal assault, which is what it would be. Yeah. Especially if she wasn't actually interested in men. That should be something that she wasn't interested in at all. But having a line like that said by Riddick, it straightened her out, as it were, and suddenly she thought the idea of being taken violently was a great idea. You could tell by the look on her face.
That's actually, kind of a straight male fantasy that bugs me, and it's something that I've heard from people before, she's only a lesbian because she hasn't met the right penis yet, met the right dude yet. No. The only thing I can think of that would in any way make her I'm a lesbian but actually Riddick make sense is if Riddick is actually a butch lesbian woman.
That would be a story I'd want to see.
Yes. Riddick,
it's still played by Vin Diesel.
Yes. Or a transgender butch lesbian. I can see that. But Riddick's not, is a thing. Or she was telling this guy she was a lesbian because she was not a strong enough person to say, no, you're sick, go away from me, I don't like you. Which doesn't match up with her character at the beginning as you meet her.
They didn't give any hints that was possibly what was going on. It wasn't I'm here with my boyfriend excuse to the pushy guy at the bar. It was... you don't know very much about this character, so we're delivering this line to get some clunky exposition out kind of thing. It wasn't the best written of movies.
And I think that actually speaks to all the tropes that we've been talking about that we just don't like. It's bad writing. And it's not just bad writing, it's bad writing that's being presented as women when there are not enough examples of good writing that are women to counteract those, to counterbalance those.
Well,
Sorry.
No, I was just thinking about a book that I'm now reading. It won the Hugo Awards last year, I think, Ancillary Justice. And in that one, the main character's language, and of course the book's written in English, but the main character, the language doesn't have gender pronouns. So she refers to everyone as her, she, sister, whatever. So it's confusing because then you're meeting characters. And she even points out the main character, even in exposition, whatever, is like, yeah, gender norms. She has a hard time figuring out who's male and female because you can't just go by how they're dressed and whether, because gender norms are different from planet to planet. So you're interacting with all these characters, and it's not that they aren't male or female. It's that that's not the first thing you know about them. It's not even the second or third thing you know about them. You might be thinking this character is female or male all the way through, and then you find out one way or the other that you were wrong.
Nice.
That's very interesting. Yeah. It leads me to bring up Alien again, because Alien is a great example of that. The movie Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, was written with last names of all the crew members and no indication of who was a man or a woman. And it was left until casting for them to fill all the roles in with the different female and male characters, and they chose to cast Ripley, the lead character, as a woman. I'm not going to say as an afterthought, but that was not the goal heading out when they were writing the...
Notice, no romance.
No romance in that one, until we got to the third movie. I guess it's sort of romantic in the second movie. She finds a guy that she's interested in, but they kind of hit it off by way of tragedy. But the point is that in that first movie, when we didn't know that Ripley was a woman, she delivered all the same lines as the men. She performed all the same actions as a man would, because it was written as a character, not as a woman. And that has presented us a fantastic, strong female character model, because she's thinking and feeling and reacting in a way that a human would, without this preconception of she's a lady, so she's going to shriek and faint, or she's a lady, so she's going to look for a man to save her, or things that you would find in lesser media.
That reminds me, we mentioned Joss Whedon, who, when he's asked, why do you write such strong female characters, he says, because you're still asking that question. You had mentioned George R. R. Martin's answer.
George R. R. Martin, they asked how he wrote such strong female characters, and he said, I've always seen women as people. And
those are very important things to think about when you're writing female characters. They're people first. And you should not be thinking of them as defined by their gender foremost. I don't think men have that problem in fiction so much, because they're not expected to have only the romance be what their life is about. There's a movie called As Good as It Gets, and I saw it years and years and years ago. And the part that has stuck with me is Jack Nicholson's character, who's a writer. And someone asks him, how do you write your women so realistically? And his response is, I take a man, and I subtract reason.
Pardon that.
Sorry, someone came in. His response to how he writes such accurate and realistic women is, I take a man and I take away reason, sense, and judgment. And those were the things that he said made a good woman character. And that's highly inaccurate. And I think that is maybe a generational thing. I'm not sure. But the point is, that seems to be something that happens in a lot of our media, whether or not people are intending to do that. Subconsciously, they're taking away reason. They're taking away good judgment. They're taking away other aspects of women's lives than, a romance subplot or, their relationship to a man being what defines them. And that's something that none of us like. It's not realistic. It's bad writing.
This is kind of getting to that we're kind of missing writing women as people first, great. But men and women are different, and there are, not always, and not all women, but women as a group, if you just pick an average, pick one at random, they're more likely to address things differently. For instance, there was a study I was looking at that was evaluating how women and men evaluate ethical conflicts. Like if you're in a hotel room and Hitler is next door and it's, before he did anything bad, do you kill him or not? And the important thing is not yes or no, it's why you say yes or no. And women tend to look at the relationships between people and all the basically, the men in general tended to be legalistic, basically, right or wrong, abstract morals, and women seem to be more concerned about the effect of the broader world, interactions, the effects and the ongoing effects. And if a man is just writing a woman as a person, that's actually probably going to do a better job than a lot of people do. On the other hand, you can miss basically the different viewpoint.
Some of the subtlety?
Yeah, and it's also the type of story you choose to tell, and how a woman would choose to get the same thing done might be different than how the male character.
This is going to feed into a topic that we're going to address in the near future. There is an improper way to write men as well. Men have a lot of baggage to them based on what they're expected to be in stories. In real life, yes, I have no authority to speak to that. That would help if we had a man on panel. That wasn't today, though. But I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Men are often expected to be strong leadership, cold authority figures before they're allowed to be emotional creatures, which is not fair because men have emotions, but big boys don't cry. There are a lot of great subversions to that trope as well existing, and I'm sure we'll speak of them in the future. I want to talk specifically about a show that I've been watching a lot of, which is called Steven Universe. Aww. Steven Universe is a cartoon show, and our lead male character, he's young, yes, but he's allowed to be an emotional, caring person without being talked down to for that reason. So he's among a very strong and diverse cast of female characters, which is great too. The best part of Steven Universe, in my opinion, for all characters, men and women, is that each person is given, and they're given a trait, not necessarily a trope, but like one is the anal retentive one, and one is the strong silent type, and one is kind of the goofy one, and then the rest of their responses kind of grow out of that character type, as opposed to she's the woman, he's the scientist, he's the deadbeat. It's more, he's a caring person, so how does that work? She's a little meek, but wants to be stronger. How does she respond in this situation? This character feels repressed. How do they respond, male or female? This character made some poor life decisions in the past, and how are they responding to that? These are interesting things. These are what anyone, a man or a woman, can respond to. And watching people react with that core element to them lets us learn more about them as characters, as human beings. That's not ignoring that they're male or female. That's a good point, Melanie. I'm very glad that you brought that up, that we aren't trying to erase any sort of sex or gender from narrative, but it's going to be a part of a whole creature. And that whole creature can be very different from one to the other. There are many, writing things, speaking of writing, when I'm writing my stories and I have two characters interacting, that I can switch the dialogue from one to the other. And the dialogue, I'm like, if they're having an argument and the points of view is not quite sitting well, if I switch it, sometimes it helps. And often that makes a difference if it's my female character who's saying the line of dialogue, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And if I switch it to the male character, and suddenly it's like, oh wait, this makes more sense for him to say it because of the point of view that he comes from. But it's not because he's a man. It's because of his character. But it's essentially in gender, the two are almost interchangeable. It's their whole life experience that's affecting it.
I also like that Steven Universe has many female cast members. That's something that I noticed because I'm slowly watching the show with Jen and someone else. I was watching the screen and I realized, there's 3 women and 1 boy. Mm-hmm. That is not something that is usual. Usually it would be 1 woman and 3 men, or 3 males of varying ages.
Yeah, the male lead character and his guy friend and his gal friend. Mm-hmm. That's what it tends to be. That's the Harry Potter. That's the Pokemon. That's the Percy Jackson. That's kind of the normal. It's like male lead, female friend, male friend.
And it was really cool to see that subverted. I really liked it. And the characters in Steven Universe are all characters, and it's evident very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I liked that too.
And there are romance notes to it, but that's not all there are.
Well, I was just thinking about different types of female characters, and Gone Girl, that's almost like an anti-romance story.
Oh?
Yeah,
seen it yet.
yeah. I'm not going to ruin it, but the setup is a wife disappears, the husband is the suspect, and it's a spoiler, but it's not too big of a spoiler to say that. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that because it is a spoiler. I just thought through that. But point is, she's very much a character, especially in the book, because we have her journal. So we know her through her journal and through flashbacks in the movie. But I was just, I just ran across this. I just realized that Gone Girl may have been inspired by a real event that occurred in Agatha Christie's life.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the real event, and sorry, this might spoil the Gone Girl if you think about it too much, but Agatha Christie's husband was having an affair. And the day she found out, or shortly after she found out, she packed up her bags, drove in her car, and then the next morning, her car was found, and her clothes were in it, and she was gone, and she was missing for 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Made quite the media sensation in the 1920s.
Sure.
Yeah. And obviously, for anyone that knows history, yes, she wasn't dead. She was alive.
I don't remember which of you said this comment, but basically I wanted to say that how we identify ourselves, like how you think of yourself, is something that's good to apply to how you think of your characters. If you think of yourself as a man first or as a woman first, what else do you think of yourself as? Like, when we introduce ourselves, we don't tend to start with, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. That's not what defines us. We tend to start with what we think is important about us. Or we start with our job, because in our culture, that's pretty important. So you'd be like, I'm an accountant. And that tells people something about you.
Now, until recently, women tend to say, oh, I'm a wife, I'm a mother.
But the examples that we were shown until recently were wives and mothers. Those were the important things that women could do and could be.
And it's a female trait to be nurturing and caring. Many women decide to be stay-at-home wives and mothers, and that is something speaking toward their character. Men decide to stay home sometimes too, and that speaks toward their character. They're deciding to subvert whatever cultural constructs that they've been presented with, and women have decided that their loved ones that they're caring for are of higher priority to them than their own careers, or that they would much rather make a career caring for other people, that's part of their character.
Or maybe sometimes it's just practicality.
That's, you said priority, though, and I think that's the thing. In our day and age, there are more choices, more avenues open for men and women than there have been in times past.
Yeah, I was just...
And because there are more avenues open, more things you can choose to be and do, and more roles you can choose to play in your life and in the lives of other people, you have choices that now will help define you a little bit more than they would have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Now when you see a woman who has chosen to be a wife and a mother, you can be pretty sure she chose that specifically. She did not want to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
She is doing what makes her happiest, and that is her choice. Same with the man. And in light of that fact that there are more avenues open for everyone now, choosing to pigeonhole women in the same avenues in our stories, in our writing, has become lazy. It's lazy writing.
And that's why we pet peeve it,
Mm-hmm.
to bring us around. I think we should do final thoughts
Yeah.
here. Pet peeves about female characters. We are tired of seeing the same ones over and over again because we are aware that there's more story to tell with women in media. When we're looking at women in media, we're taking what we have learned from our own life experience and recognizing that's absent in what we're seeing presented to us in the fictional world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just saying that it's not that the old ones or the old tropes are wrong, or even that the highly emotional romances are even wrong to write. It's that they need balance. We need counterexamples here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with them in and of themselves. It's just there is more out there that is not being used and should be.
And as writers, we should all strive to include all different types of characters, both characters that are trying to be wives, mothers, get into romance subplots, and characters that are not. Just because your characters are female does not limit what you can do with them.
An important aspect of writing is observation, and it is not just observing the world around us, it's observing ourselves. A lot of these habits that we have formed, these tropes that we write, are habits that have been ingrained in us by our culture. And we need to observe what we're writing and how we're portraying people. Because if we don't notice that we're doing something that is lazy or wrong, we can't change it. And there is so much more out there, so much more. And we want everyone to be able to use those things, to utilize those things. I mean, it hasn't been done enough. Why not be one of the first?
Well said.
You wouldn't be the first, but
One of the first.
yeah.
So, on that note, I think we will end this episode. Thank you so much for listening. This has been an episode of Right Back Radio. Until next week, have fun writing.
The new theme songs for Right Back Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. The Right Back would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their bookstore. STL Books and Gifts is St. Louis's newest independent bookstore with an emphasis on fine literature for adults and children and the most comprehensive selection of St. Louis books available anywhere. Visit them online at stlbooks.com or in person at 100 West Jefferson Avenue, Kirkwood, Missouri 63122. Tune in next week as the Right Pack will conquer yet another pondering issue in the writing industry.